Hey everyone, Thyworm here. I've played Solasta, Crown of the Magister, and these are my first impressions. If you enjoy first impressions in general, maybe from games in particular, consider subscribing. Solasta is a game that is true to the tabletop and uses the Dungeons and Dragons SRD 5.1 ruleset, and I have absolutely no idea what any of that means. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons tabletop games. I know they exist, with dungeon masters and all, and it's very popular, but I never played anything like it. I like video games. I do not particularly like board games, because it's with other people. I have played, however, a lot of games like this one. I started out once with Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale, went on to Neverwinter Nights, Pillars of Eternity, Tyranny, Divinity Original Sin, and many other games in between. Also the more sci-fi stuff like Fallout, Wasteland, and Encased. This is going to hurt a few people, but these games are essentially all the same. You create or gather a group of interesting individuals and you go on an adventure. You gather loot, you do a whole heap of turn-based combat, a bunch of quests, and in most cases I get very immersed in the worlds these games create. To me, that is the appeal of a game like this, the fantastic worlds, the interesting lore, rewarding exploration, well-written quests and dialogues. It's a little bit like a good movie almost, and Solasta is very similar in that regard. I got a key from the developers for which I'm very thankful, and I wanted to share my thoughts with you, starting with character creation. At the start, you can completely customize your party. You can create 4 characters from scratch, which you probably should do. But for people like me that just want to get going, there are a few pre-made characters available as well. So I created just one character from scratch, a dwarf fighter called Thyworm with a fake beard. The other characters I just yoinked from the pre-made menu. I got a cleric, a wizard, and a rogue. Seemed pretty decent, and so far I have no issues with the game at all. Then, after character creation, there are a lot of tutorials, and the game doesn't seem to stop with tutorials and new things. 3 hours in, I still got pop-ups about factions, world events, crafting, traveling and whatnot. They weren't really intrusive or anything, and in my case very useful, but it is also an indicator that this is a fairly complex game. At least, I think so. Despite the whole dice thing and all the other D&D stuff I'm not super familiar with, the game did a good job in making me understand the several mechanics. Something I pretty much noticed straight away was how pretty the world and level design of Solasta really is. This game genre, I guess it's a CRPG, is ancient by gaming standards, but it can still be improved, and this time I was very impressed with the various locations in the world. Not so impressive are the characters and facial expressions, however. They felt off, and the camera uses some awkward cuts and angles too, so that part of the storytelling is a little janky. Voice acting is pretty decent, almost everything seems to be voice acted, which really adds to the immersion. Like I said, I was immersed, even within the short period I played. Solasta, Crown of the Magister, tells the tale of Manacalon, the land where the High Elves ruled until a rift was opened by an evil god which caused the so-called cataclysm. Manacalon got largely destroyed, the fallen empire vanished, and the humans thrived in the 1,000 years after this event. Not the most original story I've ever heard with cataclysms and rifts, but fine. In the current day and age, Manacalon is now known as the Badlands, full of goblins, orcs, and the mysterious Sorax. Almost no one in the human capital believes that the Sorac still exist, because the tales of lizard folk that can shapeshift into human form just seem a little bit too absurd. But of course, within an hour or so, you're fighting these bad boys, and they're pretty tough actually. You stumble upon a crown, guess where the title is from, and that is pretty much the premise of a whole new adventure. I'm already hooked though, despite the perhaps somewhat generic lore and story. I just really easily dive into these worlds, and I want to see what is next, so consider me a somewhat agreeable audience in that regard. About the combat, it's very much what you would expect, I suppose. I liked the many animations, however, and the fluidity with which the characters move. These games used to be kinda stiff, but Solasta shows they've come a long way actually, which I can appreciate. Casting 4 fireballs in a row feels good, the weapon swings have some impact to them, and what's really interesting is the verticality in the arenas. It's not just a battlefield with carvings cover, you can also prepare up front, take the high ground and rain down hell or even stalactites and other objects on your enemies, very similar to Divinity Original Sin 2. After the battle, it is time for looting, some puzzle solving maybe, and to delve deeper into the characters and quests. The game has several factions and I'm sure you're not going to keep everyone happy. Artifacts you find you can deliver to these factions to earn gold and reputation. If your standing is high enough, you can buy magic and unique gear from the several factions, giving you a distinct advantage in battle because you will have access to new spells or better armor. I reckon you have now a decent overview of Solasta. It's not cheap, it's 40 euros, but it seems to be a good addition to the genre as far as I can tell. Even a casual RPG enthusiast with no particular love for D&D, like me, can enjoy the game for what it is. So I can only imagine how much fun this must be for actual D&D fans, assuming it is indeed true to the tabletop. The game released last week, May 27th. The Steam user score is at 91%, and if you're into these kind of games like me, you should probably check it out. Maybe watch some actual reviews, read a few Steam ratings, and who knows, you'll have another great game on your hands. If you want great games, you can check out my store on the Nexus. The link is in the description down below. Solasta isn't there, but other good games are games that I very much recommend. If you get a Steam key from the Nexus, I get a bit of kickback, so you'd support the channel as well if you want. I hope you enjoyed the video, and for now, that is it. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Love you all. Bye bye.